you're going to take us through some growing with my buds.
Alrighty, well, let's do this. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
So
There's no camera.
This week's growing with your buds is about choosing the right hydroponic substrate. Basically, soil, not soil, for hydroponics. Because there are so many options. Back in the day, it was just the Windhouse special, get what you can get, Hydrocultura, get what you can get. But now there are so many options that there's almost too many options. Dan, what is a substrate and why does it matter in hydroponics?
Okay, let's go through a bit of substrate talk. So substrate is soil. Basically, it's soil what you would grow your plants in. It's the place where your roots would go. So, if you have a look here, let me turn this light back on for you guys.
And what I've seen with hydroponic substrates is that we say soil as our definition of what plants grow in, but they're effectively not soil.
Yes, it's not soil. It's actually just a place for your roots to hold onto, to give your plants some sort of structure in order for it to not fall down. So, that's the one thing. The other thing would be for your plants to be able to absorb any kind of moisture that would have nutrients in it, so they are able to drink and grow and take up what they need in order to survive. So there's different types of hydroponic nutrients. I mean, not nutrients, mediums. You would start off, well, not start off with, but you would have the three basic styles, which is your Hydroton, which is the clay pebbles. Let's open this up here to look at a view here. Look at these.
And it's like little baked clay pellet type things, like little bricks
They
almost.
look like little pop rollickies.
That's it. So what it is, it's a clay expanded clay, so it's a light expanded clay aggregate. And what it comes with, let's just see this, sorry, there's no.
And it's porous, eh?
It is very porous, yes, so there we go.
It looks like whispers.
So if you look inside, it's got lots of little holes in it, which means it can hold a lot of moisture inside it, but it also allows the moisture to wick out of it. So this holds moisture when they get wet. They really do hold. They allow the roots to wrap around them, and there's a lot of crevices that the roots can go into and then sit there and basically pull moisture in. So that's one. You get this in all types of sizes, big and small. Then you've got your rock wool croutons. So some of you know rock wool as this.
And it's basically like rock candy floss, eh?
Exactly. Stone, I always call it that, stone candy floss. It's candy floss made from stones.
Stoned candy floss.
Stone candy floss. So basically, you know what these are. These are starter cubes. A lot of you guys would have started your clones or had clones in them. But basically, you use these and this would go into this block, and that's rock wool. What it is, it's light, it's rock wool. It's exactly that. It's like candy floss stone that's been made into blocks. These little croutons are the same thing.
Like a sponge.
Like a sponge. It holds a serious amount of water. But the one thing about hydroponic mediums is that they have to have a specific water to air ratio, which then doesn't allow it to hold too much moisture. So these hold just enough moisture on their own to not drown the plant. These, on the other hand, don't. They'll hold moisture, but they won't hold enough to keep your plants alive if there is no feeding constantly of it.
Yeah, it's about so what we're saying is there's a water to air ratio because
Yes.
roots do need air. They do like oxygen and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's about finding that optimum balance. And I see a lot of people even blend stuff like vermiculite and peat with the hydroton and that as well to find that right schedule for them. Because ultimately, whichever one you pick, if you pick one that gives a lot of air, it needs a lot of feeding.
Yeah.
But if you give one that holds a lot of water, it doesn't need as frequent feeding.
Yes. Like here's another medium that we use often, which is coco. Coco and perlite.
And perlite's also like baked rock or something, hey?
Perlite comes from a mine. It's a very light white, fluffy, aerated.
Almost looks
product
like
that's-
polystyrene.
Looks like polystyrene. And you
balls.
crush it,
Yeah,
it breaks up, and it holds moisture as well. And it provides little balls and pockets of air in your soil.
This is healthier for your soil than
Yeah.
polystyrene.
And this is cocoa, so this is being made from coconut husks. Basically, it's the husk of a coconut that's been crushed, macerated, and they add perlite to it. This is probably the most widely used medium in the industry, simply because it's the most standardized, most easiest to use.
It's accessible, it's affordable, and you just plug and play.
Exactly that. Opposed to your rock wool, where you can't get rid of this, you throw this away, it doesn't disappear. It's a stone. It's going to live in your garden forever. And this, this is the best in terms of reusability because you're able to wash it. You can take it out and clean it and use it again and again and again forever. You can. Which is really, really good.
As well.
And then yes, and if you are getting rid of it, you throw it in your gardens and it helps your gardens to hold moisture.
But let's be clear, when we say in your garden, in your beds, not on your lawn, because when the lawnmower hits one of those little oaks, hide the window, hide the wife, hide the kids, cover the windows, eh?
Put it in your rose garden.
Arden, it says perlite
So-
is from volcanoes.
Yes, there we go, from volcanoes.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. And then you've got one more medium,
Nothing.
which is essentially that is your support structure. So all of these are used to hold your plants up to make sure it stands up in the roots of a place to hold it and make sure it doesn't fall over as nature would need it to. But then we defy nature and we go with little things like this where you would put your plant into it and your roots would come and hang out the bottom in an aeroponic system because aeroponics is a hydroponic system but it has no medium.
It's where air and water are literally the substrate.
Fine
In a
list
way.
of highly nutritional
In darkness.
liquid
Yeah.
nutritional spray is sprayed onto the roots and keeps your roots moist. But if the power stops on that, you've got less chance of them surviving if they were comparatively sitting this or this.
Coco.
So we know there's the options. There's perlite, vermiculite, hydroton, rock wool. Those are like the primaries in that. And then you also get them in different sizes. Like that perlite's very fine. You get some very much chunkier perlite. Eh?
BioLeaf actually did a study on perlite.
Yes.
And they went to the perlite convention in Europe
Yeah.
and they changed their mix from the big perlite to the small perlite because of that.
Really?
Because of that study,
Yes.
yeah.
And perlite is
so
one of the
smaller
oldest
one
used
I've
mediums
also
in
found
hydroponics.
is better.
Yeah.
Well, it looks strange and all that, but
Yeah.
the mix they got at the moment is really powerful.
So the thinking used to be that you must use vermiculite inside your mix all the time.
Yeah.
But the problem with vermiculite was that it always held up too much moisture.
A lot of moisture.
Way too much. And it used to cause problems that just weren't able to be fixed. So now they've done the research and like you said, BioLeaf, local product, they went and did the massive research and did proper tests and found out that perlite is the best mix in your medium you could ever have. In the cocoa mix, let's say.
Yeah, but also how it's applied within that medium, big versus small versus surface area
yeah,
versus
that's
that.
the whole thing
Yes.
that they did the test on is the whole surface area thing, and they found that the smaller one, and I found it actually makes it root faster.
Yes, it allows
Because
the root
resistance
pockets.
is like softer, but there's more for it to kind of like move out the way. The roots now when it's like looking. So yeah, it's can't go wrong.
So what would you say is a good hydroponic substrate or even substrate blend for beginners?
So hydroponic
Yeah,
cocoa.
straight cocoa.
It's the most forgiving substrate to start off with. If you can learn to grow in cocoa and understand how runoff works and keeping your medium to a certain EC and pH and making sure that you haven't got any swings in that area, you'll be able to play with these other ones. These other ones are easy in terms of ebb and flow system, which you would use this for. Ebb and flow system, you'd use a Hydroton because you're flooding the base of the pot. So as long as your nutrients are correct and you tap with that, you're good. But to start off with, I definitely would go with cocoa.
Yeah, it's also the least high maintenance because it holds moisture
Yes.
nicely.
Yeah.
You can overdo it with water. Guys, if I came into the grow shop there by use, I said, hey, Green Grow Room, I've got a couple $100 to spend on my soil. What would you say? Here's the easiest. I'm not going to come back in a week and moan.
To spend on your soil or to,
Well, your
to
substrate.
shop for substrate on hydroponics. Well, we can look at the conditions you're growing in, and then take it from there. Because hotter climates, like you mentioned, Dale, perlite's your cocoa core is good. It's forgiving. It's pH balanced. Be sure to buffer it before you start working with it. But then adding or subtracting certain amounts of perlite will assist in hotter environments if you're growing in a greenhouse or if you're growing in an indoor. So what we would recommend off the bat, we just need to do a little bit of homework is what your end goals are, how you're growing, what you're growing, where you're growing, and then we would recommend as to what substrate to use in that specific application. So the answer is very varied, but we'll give you the right answer when you come to the shop.
Is there anyone that you're low-key partial to, though?
Definitely the Hydroton, the expanded clay pellets, because I do a lot of aquaponics personally, and it's very suitable for aquaponics because you're dealing with fish as well, you're dealing with living animals. The coco tends to block up systems. The perlite's not friendly towards the fish, so that's for me, because when I grow organically or in aquaponics, which is your organic version of hydroponics. So personal preference, Hydroton, just a little bit more versatile, but then for your beginners, I definitely go with what Dale said and stick to your coco. It's more forgiving, it holds moisture a lot more, its pH is a lot more balanced. You need to play with it less to get a stable environment per se. So yeah, I mean, not to run in circles, but personal preference, Hydroton, just because of the applications and how I grow. But recommendations to beginners, definitely back Dale's answer there. And then you really come to the Green Grow Room and we will provide you with the right substrate in accordance to how you want to grow.
The right stuff for you, hey?
Yeah.
Kai, any preference?
My personal preference in growing is, Dave knows it, is organics. So it's in soil, full.
Not even those
full
substrates.
medium rich,
Living soil,
living soil, feeding those microbes, kicking out those terpenes, producing the smells and the flavors and the tastes. But yeah, in hydroponics, I'd probably look at the lacquer. I'd probably look at the lacquer. Just if I was designing my ideal hydroponic system, it would definitely include a net pot with some lacquer and DWC.
Ooh.
So
bubble. Because that stuff, that lacquer goes so nice in a DWC or like a ebb and flow, something where it can take a lot and drip without building up algae on top and all that.
Like the guys were saying, these also, when you say which one would it for a beginner, it depends on what system you want to go with.
100%.
So if your interest is sparked in an NFT or a deep water culture or an ebb and flow or a drip or whatever it might be,
Go something clean.
it's going to
and
depict
clog-free.
more along the lines what you're going to have to use. You can't use this, like you say, in a deep water culture. It's not going to work for you. It's going to cause shit. There's certain things that you would go with. So it actually, like they're saying, go to the shop, speak to the guys at the shop, see what they can recommend to you for whatever situation and system you want to go with. Because that's just how it is. You have to be very
Open-minded and adapting.
Of course, you can't just say no. All I'm going to use is organics or rock wool or
100%.
this. If your situation says no, you have to be on a third story on the third story flat. You've only got a certain amount of space. You can't have big pots. You have to have lots of small pots. Then you would choose maybe go for hydroponics because it's a space-saving situation. If you're outdoors and you've got or even just have a bigger yard when you want big pots, you go for the nice big living beds.
Someone I know on Facebook is mentioning rice hulls being better than perlite, possibly. Thoughts?
But now we're venturing into the realm of potentially organic.
Yes,
because what we're really dealing with here effectively is very sterile mediums. Inert. There's no nutrition in them. They're not going to the peat to an extent, but like you say, they're not going to break down.
This is inert. There's nothing in this. When you wash this down, there is nothing here that is going to rot per se. It'll sit like this forever. But what they do, it breaks down in terms of everything breaks down. It becomes dust. But this is inert. It does not hold or doesn't provide anything if you don't give it anything. Same with all of these.
Because I've seen I've seen guys do everything on all the forums and all that. From the pure, I've seen guys do pure perlite grows with the hempy technique. I've seen oaks do DWC all the way down to like Lucas Tech and that in it. I see guys going crazy with the rock wool, even though you get low-key algae on top if you overdo it. But I've also been very partial to peat or coco or coco blends. Coco with a bit of perlite or a bit of hydroton, because like I see at probably at Use and at like Green Thumb Hydro, you can literally walk in and there's a dog food size thing of the ideal blend for you. It's not like you even have to buy it and mix it yourself anymore. Most of this.
Unfortunately, you have to pay the school fees when you go into this realm.
Yeah.
Hydroponics isn't just a tell me what to do right now, because
Yeah.
it just does not work like that. You are
100%.
learning a completely new method, not new, it's actually centuries old, but way of growing. You have to understand the mechanics of growing this method instead of putting it in the ground and just throwing water at it.
You have to do a lot
Mechanical,
to get your
yes.
plants
Yeah,
to grow.
things
in
you have to
hydroponic.
do
Mechanical.
and maintain and monitor in order to be more successful,
System's
because
gotta run.
you are playing God. When you decide to go this way, you are playing God essentially. You're the one that
You
says,
control.
I'll give you this
water.
pH and this EC in your feed, this many times a day, X, Y, and Z, blah blah fish paste, and that's how it is. So
Look, Bose is also right. Like I've seen for a while. The most requests we get are pro mixes.
yes,
So, yeah, a
70,
mix of
30.
60-40, 70-30. So we also do that, and we mix for you at our shop.
Yeah.
Buffer
you got to
that
pay the
mixture
school fees.
up.
Go and do the different things: 60-40, 70-30, 90-10,
How do you want to
100.
struggle?
How,
Yeah.
Exactly.
How often do you want to water? All
What
these
do you wanna
things.
do?
But that's why you go into the grow shop. That's why you speak to these guys,
Yeah.
to the Grow Guru guys, to the Hydrobiz guys, to all the guys, the hydroponics.co.za. Speak to them, ask them. They're gonna ask. They're gonna hit you with some questions back. But that's just because they want to make sure you go out with a smile on your dial and you don't come back a week later moaning. And also understand what it is your outcomes are. How often can you water? What's the final outcome?
Do
But
you have
this.
power?
Do you have power? Do you have
Yeah,
power?
solar backup.
Do you have amps? But what I will say is, why I have occasionally gravitated towards this sort of growing is that you can really gas it outdoors. Don't get me wrong, and you can really gas it with living soil. And I know in times living soil beats it, but you can get consistent, very high end results with this sort of thing when you get it right.
It's repeatable. 100% repeatable. Using mediums like this, you can use it, and every single time you go by this block and you use that nutrient,
It's gonna work the same.
it is going to work the same.
You're
Yeah.
pinpoint
Same
feeding.
recipe.
Yeah.
Science.
Well, it's
Yeah.
managing
Cool.
risk. You can't go into big operations and use methods that aren't going to be exactly the same every
Custom
single time.
soil mixes,
Yeah.
unless you've run it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you have tonnage of that,
Yeah.
which is then also
Stable, your
still
control.
a risk in
clean
the sense
room.
to go commercial, because you can't guarantee that bag 1 and bag 37,242 is the same. And if you can't do that,
You
your
can't
risk
even
is out
taste
the
that.
window, and it's
You can't even taste
unfortunately
so
with
many
these
bags.
fucking exorbitant licenses that we would have had to pay for and the
Yeah.
cost of it,
Yeah.
you can't afford that fucking one bag to be wrong.
Yeah.
But that's why there is a solution. You oaks
Yeah.
go
Even
to.
grow in the ground under license, bro.
Yeah, that's why you go
Can't
and buy
even
this
put a
stuff. You go
plant
and buy,
in the
go
fucking
to the
ground.
grow shops that are providing it. Boom,
Yeah.
sorted,
And
done.
if you want bag 5 to be the same as bag 5 million, go to BioLeaf.
There you
Local oaks who are that committed
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they
That's
get
it.
it.
Hardcore.
They get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should work.
So that is hydroponic mediums in a nutshell.
Dope, guys.